Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Del Barzi. And as always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe, give us a comment, leave us a like. So today, my guest is Ms. Jenn Evers. And here is what Jenn says about herself. She says, I am a nurse and a nurse educator, but I'm really, in essence, a highly intuitive, empathetic healer, and I assist others with transmutation of the energies they carry within themselves that do not serve them by simply holding a space of unconditional love for them where they can feel safe to be exactly who they are. No judgment whatsoever, just absolute unconditional love, no matter who they choose to be in every single moment. I am a way shower and a guide to help others learn how to look at every experience in our life as an opportunity for us to love ourselves more, never less. This is how we heal from the inside out. Jenn, thank you so very much for being here. And that was, I read that and I thought, oh, wow, this is deep.
Yes. Even as I sit here, even though I wrote that, chills everywhere. Because it absolutely is who I am. So yeah, thank you for reading that, because I'm like, I got chills everywhere. I hear that.
So let's start with this. What was your journey to becoming a nurse? What inspired you? Who inspired you?
I'll be honest with you, Dale. I was in med school. I was a pre-med, and I was going to be a genetic engineer because I wanted to help people in that way. And I got a job in a hospital as a vampire, right? As a phlebotomist. Just not by coincidence. It happened because of connections. And I started to really get interacting with the patients. And I realized I wanted to help people in a different way. And I was really being called to be a nurse. That was the first step of the journey. I now know that it was part of the plan, right, that I had for myself, but didn't know it at the time. So I'd like to say that the patients that I served in that role and the experiences that I went through is actually what prompted me to say, I don't think I want to be a doctor. I think I want to be a nurse. And it's been one of the best decisions I made career-wise ever. Yeah.
I it's always so interesting to me the many paths that somehow lead people to this, so many different ways. So in what areas have you worked in?
Well, everything except peds and maternity.
Okay.
I would have to say. So I spent most of my career in the intensive care unit.
Okay.
Cardiac, medical, renal, pulmonology. And I worked in the emergency department for a while. And then I spent 4 years as a procedural sedation nurse in a interventional radiology. So lots of background in ICU, but that is really where I started to really come into the next part of my journey, which we're going to talk about. But just noticing all of this physical dis-ease that people showed up with was not just of the physical. There was so much stuff going on within themselves and the family dynamics. And after spending 8 years there, it was just like, there's got to be something else that's going on behind all of this, physical manifestation. There was emotional trauma. There was psychological trauma. There were broken relationships, and a longing for healing on all levels, not just a Band-Aid, right?
Yes, indeed.
Because a lot of times that's what medicine does. It has its purpose, but I think we have a greater purpose to really help people heal from the inside out.
Yeah. So as you were talking, and you mentioned trauma a couple of times, and I wonder if people actually realize that they have been traumatized.
Well, no, because the way that society stigmatizes it is that, we're not allowed to look at the experiences we've gone through as trauma, because there's so many other people out there who've gone through more than we've gone through.
Yes.
And so it doesn't really give us this allowance to just be with that experience and recognize that it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. It's left an energetic residue on our feelings about ourself and our self-worth
Yes.
and who we show up every day to be, what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
And where
Yeah.
does our validation come from of we're worthy, we're loved? So I think people don't say it's trauma. They don't recognize it as trauma
Mm-hmm.
because we're told we shouldn't use that word, right? That's reserved for people who go off to war
Yeah.
and
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
that's just a belief, and beliefs are changeable.
Yeah. So once you recognized that there was something else needed, how did you maneuver yourself into this path?
Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. It just started with synchronicities of picking up a book, right?
Okay.
Learning about Edgar Cayce, who was considered the holistic
Mm-hmm.
or the father of holistic medicine. And once I started reading him, it just kind of snowballed into one more practitioner after that who just,
Yeah.
validated what he had done so many years
Years
ago.
ago.
And people
Mm-hmm.
probably thought he was crazy, right? But his stuff actually worked. And so it was a snowball effect. And I just kept coming more and more back to there's something more, there's something more. And one book after another. And then 2.5 years ago, very consciously, I myself went through a very difficult time with my relationships, with
Mm-hmm.
my marriage. And I got to a point where I was at the end of I was going to lose it all because I was doing things that were not healthy for me and I needed help. And I think for so many of us, especially nurses, especially as strong women,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we have this tendency to think that we can just do it all by ourselves, right? I'll read a
Mm-hmm.
book, I'll get the knowledge, but then nothing changes. It's because we're not actually applying it and we don't know how to. And that's okay. It's not a judgment. It's just realizing it's okay for us to ask for help too. And that's what I did. And what I thought I was doing what I was reaching out for help, it ended up being so much more than that, and it
Mm-hmm.
took me inside of myself into this deep inner work and spiritual journey. And I'm so grateful I made that choice because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I'm, at this point in time. So
Yeah. 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 I understand that. And sometimes we recognize it, but we're not really willing to do the work either.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often tease myself because I say, well, Jen, you're a nurse, but you're also a psycho-spiritual life coach. So I help people really wake up to these things within themselves. And I'm like, you could not have chosen a more difficult niche to go into because we are so good at helping other people and we give so much of ourselves to them. But the better question is then why do we feel so tired, exhausted, drained, and never feel like there's enough time for ourselves?
Ourselves.
Who's
Yeah.
taking care of us? And
Mm-hmm.
the answer to that question is you have to show up for you. And
Yeah.
until you're willing to do that, we're going to continue to feel burnout and like we're never good enough.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's okay to ask for help. And that's really what I want people to know. It's okay. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less than. In fact, it makes you courageous,
It makes
brave, and
right,
strong.
right. It's the first and maybe strongest step, actually. Maybe the strongest step. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
So, and you're a Reiki master.
Yes. Yes, I am. Many years ago, no synchronicity, well, absolute synchronicity in this. When we were building our house, we moved into an apartment complex, and I'd been on this path of learning more about spiritual stuff and opening and expanding my beliefs. And so we moved into this apartment while our house was being built. And no lie, the next week, across my Facebook feed came this thing about Reiki. Come to find out, it was a class being held literally across the street from my apartment complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned it then and I went through the training then, but I had no idea what I was doing and I had nobody to support me through it. And so then, come full circle about a year and a half ago, I went into a program for empathic healers and I
Uh-huh.
learned Reiki through that. And it was in my Reiki master training, which is a 3-day intensive training where you do a lot of inner work and inner healing. that I really came to understand that we all have these stories, right? That we tell ourselves over and over again about ourselves, about our self-worth. And we think that it comes from everybody outside of us because that's usually where it came from originally, right? The conditioning and the things that we're
Yeah.
told about our worth. And it was in that moment, the last day of my Reiki master training, that I saw my 17-year-old self who went through a lot of trauma with coming out, not being afraid of not being loved.
Mhm.
And I had a moment and an opportunity to walk with that 17-year-old self and hear her, hear what she had to say, hear what she was feeling. And as I listened to her, I realized she was so angry and upset about all the things that had happened to her. And I let her talk. And then I said, "But who told you all of that stuff?" And she went outside of herself and she blamed. And I said, "But who is the one who keeps telling you the same story?" And there was this profound moment where she said, "I did." And that was the minute that she and I knew together that we could rewrite the story that we tell ourselves every single day. And that was the most profound moment of healing for me, and it has made all the difference. So Reiki is an energetic practice. It's working in the energy because we are all energetic beings.
Mhm.
We could go deep into science, but if you zoomed in on my hand, right, it might look solid, but at the essence of it, it's just a lot of space actually between all the things that make it up. So we are not just physical. We are emotional, psychological, metaphysical, energetic beings. And we can move and shift a lot of this stuff that we feel and we carry with us. And that's how I work with people in one facet,
Mhm. Mhm.
is to help them move a lot of these energies that they're holding on to. And nurses are empaths. I don't care what anybody says. If you're in the field of caring for other people, you're most likely an empathic person.
Mhm.
And, we have these gifts to have compassion, but we too often don't show it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's where really the work needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I can help people do that, right?
Awesome, 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 awesome. And so we're talking about Reiki, and I want to, I keep trying to pronounce this thing, the Hipponopono. You're a Hipponopono practitioner.
You did a good job. You did a good job. So it is Hoa Pono,
Okay.
and it's
Okay.
okay. It is an ancient Hawaiian clearing tool. It is not an affirmation. So many people out there talk about positive affirmations, which are a great start, but Ho'oponopono is a ancient Hawaiian clearing statement. So there's a lot more to it,
Mm,
which is too long for our episode today, but I'll be happy to come back and just do an episode on that if you want to.
sure.
But it is 4 phrases, and you do not even need to know what it means, how it works. You just simply need to say to anything that comes up in your life, no matter what it is. If it doesn't feel good, you say to whatever this is that is within me, "I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me and thank you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." And
Mhm.
the whole premise is that when people in our ancestral lineage, especially the people of this Hawaiian, ancestors, if anybody did anything wrong, they made a mistake, they trespassed against each other, it wasn't about pointing fingers and shaming and blaming. Everyone in that village had to come together and they had to admit their part of it, right? Take 100% responsibility to say, doesn't matter how small it was, right? All of us have a hand because we're all connected. So they would come together, they would take 100% responsibility for it. They would say, "I love you. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And thank you, God, Creator, for clearing this all from me and whoever it's connected to."
Mhm.
And they didn't have all these patterns and memories and shame and resentment that were following around with them. So it may sound really simple. There's a lot of depth to it. I do workshops on this specifically to help people gain a deeper understanding of what's really going on. But
Mhm.
I'll give you this. I had eczema on my body for my entire life, right? Like as a kid. And I started using this tool consistently to whatever's related to this eczema in my body. "I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you." And within 1 week, Dale, the eczema was gone from my body and it has never come back.
Wow. That is some testament. Wow.
It's powerful that, you
Mhm.
know, but we are a very convenient society. We love convenience, right? We drive up, place our order within 5 minutes, cha-ching, right? It's done.
Yeah.
We have to be consistent with this and the power of belief, even if we don't see results right away. Just have to keep doing it. That's all there is. Just keep doing it. That's it. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right. And so you have your the awakened nurse.
Yes.
So tell me about.
That is the business name, but it's really more about what I call myself. What I found is that, you know, when I put it out there as the awakened nurse, people are like, "Oh, it's just for nurses." I'm like, "No, it's for anybody who needs some healing, right? Because
Yeah.
we're nurses, we want to help people." That's the name of my business, and because I am the awakened nurse, so it's me sharing these insights and these powerful, profound truths that at a deep level, all of us actually resonate with it. We
Mhm.
just have for so long forgotten who we actually are as divine beings created in the image of God. And if we're the light and love sent forth, how could we be anything less than that?
Mhm.
So I really try to help people wrap the logical mind around things, because all this woo woo stuff is great. And I'm not making fun of it. I'm very woo woo. But at the same time, we need to feel safe. And when there's new concepts, there's new beliefs, there's new things to think about, we want to feel safe. Otherwise, we run from it because, you know, we don't understand it. So I really think I bring a unique milieu in the fact that not only I have the spiritual woo-woo side, but I have the logical academia side to things, and say, let's break this down and start to understand it. And people are like, oh, that makes sense, right? That's why I feel the way that I
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
They can
Mhm.
attach to it, then they can start to unravel it at the pace that's right for them. And they have my support the whole time, again, to love them through it. You know, I went through the same thing, right? Questioning, and is this okay?
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at your page there earlier, and I see that I read some of the stuff that you talked about. I listened, I should say. And two things that really struck me. One was one episode you talked about resentment,
Mm-hmm.
and another one about resistance.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, resentment, yeah, I may have, thought about it, but never in that depth. Resistance, I don't know if I actually ever thought about it at all. And so, um, I have to tell you that it was very insightful and very enlightening. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you know, resistance is something that we don't really see within ourselves. We
Mhm.
just see that we're struggling,
Yeah.
that we're in this oppositional force to people. And the thing I want people to know is that a basic energetic principle, remember, we're all energetic beings, is that whatever we resist persists. Meaning, if we're putting oppositional energy, or we're angry, or we're frustrated with anything, we're just adding more energy to the very thing that we want to actually not have in our life. So, in essence, the more energy we give to anything, the more we create of the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does make sense. It's very very clear sense. Yeah, indeed. So how big do you want to see this get? This awakenedness thing.
I would love for it to be what I do full time. But that's only because my passion, what brings me joy, is watching other people wake up to these truths that have always been within them and believe in themselves, that they have it within them, right? So I'd love to see it get as big as whatever God, the universe wants it to be, in service to humanity, to help heal the hearts. Because the more we heal ourselves, the more we heal each other.
Indeed.
And that is really my mission. I'm writing a book right now for nurses. It's called The Heart of a Nurse: How to Use Our Empathy to Heal Ourselves and to Help Heal Others. So, you know, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but the vision that I see is to be able to reach people and help people. And my focus right now really is nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and not just nurses, anybody who works in healthcare, because we are experiencing a very significant amount of trauma right now. We deal with
Mm-hmm.
death and dying before all of this stuff that's been going on, but the level of it now and the things that so many healthcare providers are carrying within their being, feeling
Mm-hmm.
responsible for it, feeling resentment over it, feeling frustrated at people's choices. Guys, I get all of that, but it's not up for us to fix it. And the sooner we let go of that, the sooner we can just be who we're meant to be and be that person who shows love and empathy and compassion for everybody, no matter what their choices are, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what we think they should have done or they shouldn't have done.
Right.
It's about love. It's about love. But we have to give that to ourselves first. And that's where so many people are disconnected is, oh, I love myself. But then in the next breath, they're saying how they hate their hips or I look fat in this or what are the words you're speaking to yourself? Because that'll give you a lot of insight into actually, are you really showing up and loving yourself fully as you are
Mm-hmm.
instead of judging ourselves? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not really easy.
Mm-mm.
That's not really easy at all. It's so easy. I mean, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we focus on the things that I wish it was different. And just as you said, the more that you give energy to it, you know, the more it annoys you.
Yeah. But is it, I think that's the conditioning that we go through in
Yeah.
society and the labels, and then people make, tell us things about ourselves and we take it personally.
Yeah.
Um, we can heal all of that. I am living proof that judgments, that shaming, all of the conditioning we've had as we've grown up, and it's not to judge our parents. They were simply living from the space
From
and
the
the place and the awareness that they were in because they
Yeah.
were taught that too. So I, as the awakened nurse, what I really understand is that we can't look back at our life and say, well, that was a different time in my life and I shouldn't have done that and I'm ashamed of that, but I'm going to move forward now. We have to love all of ourselves. That means looking back and saying, I did the best I could from the place I was at. And I love her for it because if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be where I'm at
Wouldn't be here.
now.
I
So it's
wouldn't be
about
here.
integrating all of our experiences and loving ourselves through the process.
What would you say is your vision for nurse? I don't even know if for nurses at this point, but for the nursing profession, as a whole, where would you like to see us go?
That is an excellent question. And I thought a lot about that, Dale. And I am a true believer that all of this stuff that's coming up right now in the collective, especially with nurses, more options, right? More options of choices of how
Mm-hmm.
to market themselves, how to get better pay. I think that we need to stand up together as a profession in love, not
Mm-hmm.
in opposition, not in anger, not in demanding this or that, but we need to stand together and say, we are worth more than what we have allowed ourselves and how we've allowed ourselves to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
deserve a seat at the table to make decisions about how
Yes.
we plan care, how we're staffed, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not actually difficult. I actually have an entire strategy for that I hope to one day be able to pose to corporations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have to do the work within ourselves first because
Yeah.
again, whatever we give energy to in that same energetic frequency is what we're going to get back. So if we're
Yeah.
angry,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to be angry about stuff, but let's do something together that's moving forward in a direction that says this is how we know our profession to be, it's how
Mm-hmm.
we want to serve, and we deserve to have a seat at the table at the decision making. And
Yes.
we are the spine of healthcare, and I think people need to understand that's in our corner. um, but we have to start standing up for ourselves and
Ourselves.
stop
Yes.
hearing,
Yes. Yes.
oh, I'm not good enough, nothing you ever do is good enough, check one more box, do this, and it's like, we're so afraid, right? Because we're so afraid because we get our validation of our self-worth from somebody telling us we're doing a good job. And guess
Exactly.
what? We don't hear it from
Yeah.
our bosses.
Yeah.
We don't hear it from our patients. And so we constantly beat ourselves up
Yeah.
and we just do more in order to be more. And I'm going to invite people to stop doing more and just start being more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. We give away our power a lot.
Yes. And that's a good point. We are actually the ones who are giving it away.
Yeah.
So often we feel like the victims in all of it, but we're making a choice to give it away in return and, some type of exchange for our approval of our self-validation. And it doesn't come from anybody else. It comes from you, within you.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that, I didn't have an opportunity to listen to this one, but I saw that you did something about self-care.
Yeah.
We all of us in these days, we throw it around. I absolutely believe that we have to care for ourselves before we can care for anybody else. As I speak to people, though, what I realize more and more is that A, it's become a buzzword, but B, it means different things to different people.
Sure.
What does it mean to you?
So the number one thing that self-care means to me is boundaries.
Okay.
So self-care can look like a lot of things. What it doesn't look like is binge watching Netflix or, drowning ourselves in other things to escape the reality of our emotions and our feelings. We have to set boundaries, healthy boundaries, meaning that if they're calling, for you to work the 4th shift or 5th shift of the week, you have to be willing to put your phone down and turn it off and not answer it. You have to be willing to say, no, I'm tired and I need to take time for myself and not feel guilty about it, because that's where we get tripped up.
Yeah.
We do it, but then we feel bad about it and then we beat ourselves up for it. And so the next time it happens, we go, oh, I better go in. I don't want to let down my team. It's not up to us to fix a problem we did not create. Right? So if you want to spend, 3-5 minutes just being in silence and being in nature, I really always say that's great. Go outside, be with nature. You don't have to give an exorbitant amount. That's the other thing is people don't ascribe to self-care because they believe it has to look a certain way. It has to look like what's best for you and what you choose to do. But you're worth it. You're worth it. And it might sound like it's hard to do at first, but I'm going to tell you, if you just do it and you start to do it, it gets easier. And then you realize the whole world didn't fall apart because you said no. Right?
In fact, there was someone else who said yes.
Exactly. Right? And, I laugh about it now, Dale, because I used to be the nurse that always did that. I used to be the one that would always come in. This is way before all this stuff that's going on now. And we would all stand around the nurse's station and, talk about the nurse who never came in to help. And we were so resentful. And I'm like, that nurse was just taking care of themselves. And I'm like, oh my God, mind blown, right? Like, that's why they were always happy when they came in, right?
Yeah. Jen, what do we do?
We love ourselves and we choose ourselves because we're worth it, right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you this. For those of you who have spouses or partners or kids, right? If you're not going to set boundaries, healthy boundaries to take time for yourself and do what you need to, what ends up happening is we give all day long. Then we come home and we have these little ones who are expecting us to give more to them, or a spouse who's expecting, and we can't give it, or we try to give it, but we're resentful about it. Then we feel bad for that, right? Then we lose our temper or our patience. And then later we sit back and we're like, oh, I'm a horrible mom. I'm a horrible wife, or a whatever. If we would just set the time to give ourselves what we need first, we have the energy to fill other people's cup because we filled ours first.
Yeah.
There's this meme going around on Facebook, and it's like, this picture of a cell phone battery and a person next to it, and they're like, the battery's almost dead. And they were like, you wouldn't let this happen to your cell phone. So why do you let it happen to yourself, right?
True.
Recharge yourself, take care of yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important. It's so important. We are not the savers of the world, even though we feel like it. We got to take care of us first. And then you can show up and you feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are you most proud of so far? What's your greatest achievement, you think?
My greatest achievement, two fronts. One is my healing, right? One
Okay.
is being able to go in and do the work and face those shadows of myself that I was too ashamed to do for a long time. Um, that's number one, to get to where I'm at now and the level of inner peace that I have, which this is not a linear thing. It's not like a one-stop shop and done, but I
Mm-hmm.
keep coming back to the same things in different layers. But now I have the tools and the self-love and the self-worth to move through those and just say, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
not beat myself up. Um, the other part is my children, because what I see is that as I have done this work within myself, my kids are going to be raised a different way where they love themselves and know their worth from the time at their age. So I say to people all the time, the greatest gift we can give our kids is our own healing, because it's going to create the future that we want
Yeah.
for them.
Indeed.
And that is
Indeed.
probably the proudest thing that I've done in my life so far, is to break those generational cycles and to create a different future for my children and for the world.
Awesome. 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 That just reminds me of something I saw the other day that said that what you teach your children, you're actually teaching to your grandchildren. So you're right.
Yes.
So knowing all of this, if someone wants to be a nurse, what advice would you give them?
I salute you, number one, and I'm so grateful that you would choose this profession. Yes, right now it doesn't look like it's the best profession or the most rewarding one, but I'm going to tell you, despite all of that, when you feel how you touch someone's life, there's nothing more
Okay.
rewarding than being able to be someone that people are the most vulnerable with, and they don't even know you,
Right.
and they're willing to take a cup of pills from you and trust you. But
Yeah.
it's the moments where you get to sit and hold someone's hand and to cry with them and to hug them in those moments are the most vulnerable, because I believe that's the time where we're shining our souls so
Mhm,
authentically
mhm, mhm.
and we're making the most connections. So if I had to tell you one thing, it's one of the most rewarding careers. Don't let the state of the world right now deter you, but I'm going to invite you very much so to do the inner work that you need to do on yourself, to learn how to set boundaries, to learn to know your worth and to take care of yourself. Because if you don't, you will get very pulled and sucked into this whole wounded healer archetype, as Carl Jung talks about,
Mhm.
where we are constantly in service of others with forsaking ourselves first. So please learn how to take care of you first, because you're worth it. And it will make your career every day so much more rewarding when you first show up for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there are so many of us that I know who we get to work, and before you get out of the car, you sit in the car and you steel yourself and you put on your emotional armor and all of this, and then you get out and say, all right, yeah.
Breathe.
And you're already, yeah. And you know what? When you've done that at the beginning of your day, you've already lost.
Mm. Set the intention. I think mind is very powerful, right? So when we're resilient in these things on our worth and
Yeah.
our self-worth, and we tell ourselves before we go into work, this is a powerful thing I did, was I had to start telling myself, I'm going to go in here today and give everything that I have. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter what anybody else tells me, what I have to give today is enough, and I'm enough
And
already.
you're enough. Yeah.
And as long as we can keep coming back to that during the day, even when other stuff comes up, because it's going to,
It's
right?
going to. Mm-hmm.
We can really breathe into that and just go, I'm enough already, right? That person's stuff, right? They may be saying something to me, but I don't have to receive it, take it personally, and think that I'm not enough. I'm giving everything that I
Yeah.
can. and I'm enough already.
Yeah.
And that helped me tremendously. So I hope that it can help other people.
Yeah. So one last thing I've been thinking about recently is words that we use to describe nurses. So if there was one, or rather, not just the word, but the essential character, the essential thing that makes you want to be a nurse. So if you had to describe a nurse in one essential quality of a nurse, what would it be in one word?
Empathy.
Empathy. That came up so many times. I actually wrote it as you were speaking because you said it so many times. I knew it was going to be that one. Yeah.
But empathy is, empathy in the word is really being able to put ourselves in that energetic space with someone. Maybe we didn't live through the same stuff that they lived through, but we can learn to see other people's experiences from their point of view instead of our own point of view and any biases or judgments that we might hold.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if we don't believe it happened or we don't think it was that bad. It's not about what we believe. It's about how they feel and what they went through.
Yeah.
And holding a space for them to know they're loved, not judged, and they're safe to be who they are. And that is the basis of energetic healing. When we can show up, 2 or more are gathered, miracles can happen.
And on that note, I can only say thank you, Jenn.
You're welcome.
No matter what else I say, it's can't be bigger than thank you, Jenn. Thank you so very, very much for being here today.
Receive your blessings with gratitude, and I'm so grateful that you invited me to be on the space. You found me, so very grateful indeed.
Thank you so much.